There is a moment most people spend their lives avoiding, not because it is dangerous, but because it is honest. It happens when the noise finally stops, when the phone is still, when the room offers no distraction, when no one is watching. In that moment, silence does not feel peaceful. It feels heavy, not because you are alone, but because nothing is standing between you and yourself. The ancient Stoics understood this weight. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Yet most people never enter that retreat willingly. They flee from it. They fill their days with voices, opinions, notifications, obligations, and performances. Not because life demands it, but because silence exposes what distraction conceals. Modern neuroscience confirms what philosophy observed centuries ago. When external stimuli disappear, the brain's default mode network awakens. Thought turns inward. Memory, identity, unresolved emotion, and meaning surface without permission. This is why stillness feels uncomfortable, not because something is wrong, but because something real is finally present. Solitude is not emptiness, it is confrontation. In silence, borrowed identities collapse. In stillness, habits reveal their true motives. Without an audience, the ego loses its script. This is why people fear being alone. Not because they lack company, but because solitude removes excuses. It asks a simple question with no urgency and no mercy. Who are you when nothing distracts you from yourself? The Stoics did not seek solitude to escape the world. They sought it to prepare for it. Zeno taught that character is not shaped by applause, but by consistency. Epictetus insisted that freedom begins the moment you stop outsourcing your peace. Cato chose inner command over external approval, even when the cost was unbearable. Stillness to them was not weakness, it was training. And today, in a world addicted to stimulation, stillness feels heavier than ever. Dopamine pulls attention outward. Emotion seeks regulation through noise. Identity dissolves into performance. Yet the cost of avoiding solitude is quiet and cumulative. Without stillness, focus fractures. Without silence, self-command erodes. Without time alone, meaning remains borrowed. The weight of stillness is not meant to crush you, it is meant to shape you. Solitude is where the noise ends and your truth begins. Not the truth you announce, but the one you live. Why the Stoics believed no virtue survives constant noise. The Stoics did not romanticize solitude. They respected it. They understood that character is not formed in comfort nor revealed in company, but tested in quiet. Zeno did not teach his students to withdraw from the world permanently. He taught them to step away long enough to stop being ruled by it. Cleanthes spoke of endurance not as resistance to pain, but as loyalty to reason when no one is watching. Musonius Rufus went further, insisting that philosophy is not something you perform in public discourse, but something you practice privately, where there is no applause to distort intention. Solitude, to the Stoic mind, was a moral environment, a place where virtue either survived or collapsed. In the presence of others, behavior adapts. Words soften, masks appear, even honesty becomes strategic. But alone, none of this is necessary. There is no audience to persuade, no image to maintain, no reward for pretending. What remains is the raw structure of your character. This is why Cato the Younger terrified his contemporaries. He did not need witnesses to act justly. His discipline did not depend on approval. He carried the same inner order into isolation that he carried into public life. The Stoics saw this as the highest form of freedom, to be governed by principle rather than circumstance. Noise interferes with this process. Constant interaction blurs the line between who you are and who you perform. Without solitude, values become reactive, decisions become negotiated, discipline becomes conditional. Solitude strips that away. It reveals whether your habits are chosen or inherited. Whether your beliefs are examined or absorbed, whether your discipline exists only under observation or stands on its own. This is why the Stoics warned against a life without withdrawal, not withdrawal from responsibility, but from distraction. Marcus Aurelius wrote that men seek retreats in the countryside, by the sea or in the mountains, but neglect the one retreat always available, the inner citadel. Yet that citadel cannot be fortified in noise. It requires silence to be built and solitude to be maintained. Character is forged where nothing interferes, not in isolation for its own sake, but in stillness that allows the mind to align with reason. Without solitude, virtue remains theoretical. With it, virtue becomes embodied. And once character begins to take shape in silence, something unexpected happens. Stillness stops feeling empty. It starts to feel demanding, because the mind, no longer distracted, begins to notice what it has been avoiding. That discomfort is not failure, it is the threshold. What happens when dopamine no longer distracts you? Silence is not neutral to the modern brain. It is provocative. When external stimulation fades, the nervous system does not relax by default. It searches. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of anticipation and pursuit, is conditioned to expect novelty, movement, reward. In a world of endless inputs, the brain learns to stay externally oriented. Attention becomes restless. Stillness feels like deprivation. Andrew Huberman explains that dopamine is not pleasure itself, but the signal that drives seeking. When this signal has nowhere to go, discomfort arises. The mind reaches for something to scroll, something to check, something to consume. Not because it is needed, but because the brain has been trained to avoid inward attention. The Stoics described this long before neuroscience named it. Seneca warned that men who are always busy are rarely purposeful. Epictetus observed that most suffering comes not from events, but from the inability to sit with one's own impressions. They recognized what science now confirms: distraction is not relief, it is postponement. In silence, the default mode network activates. This network governs self-referential thought, memory integration, and identity processing. It is the mental space where unresolved emotions surface, where past choices replay, where meaning demands to be addressed. This is why stillness feels heavy. It invites the mind to do work it has been avoiding. Many mistake this discomfort for anxiety or boredom. In reality, it is neurological withdrawal from overstimulation. The brain is recalibrating its reward system. Attention is learning to settle without external scaffolding. Emotional regulation, as Daniel Goleman notes, begins not with control but with awareness. The Stoics would call this the beginning of apatheia. Not numbness, but freedom from compulsive reaction. Stillness exposes the difference between impulse and intention, between craving and choice. Avoidance keeps dopamine elevated but unstable. Solitude lowers stimulation but increases clarity. The mind becomes quieter, yet more honest. Thoughts slow down, emotions sharpen. What once felt unbearable becomes intelligible. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It removes the chemical cushion of distraction. It forces the nervous system to confront itself without anesthetic. But this discomfort is not a warning. It is adaptation. As the brain settles, attention deepens, focus returns, emotional noise fades. What remains is not emptiness, but coherence. And in that coherence, another challenge emerges. When stimulation disappears, you are no longer distracted from yourself. The question is no longer why silence feels difficult, but what silence reveals. That is where the real work begins. The moment when masks dissolve, there is a particular unease that arises when you realize no one is watching, not because you are lonely, but because you are unobserved. Without an audience, behavior loses its performative edge. Words are no longer rehearsed. Reactions are no longer managed for approval. What remains is not who you present, but who you inhabit. This is the moment Seneca described when he wrote that a man is most powerful when he stands alone with his conscience. Solitude removes mirrors, and without mirrors, the self must finally be faced directly. Michel de Montaigne believed that most people are strangers to themselves because they are never alone long enough to listen. The Stoics agreed. They warned that identity shaped exclusively in public becomes unstable. It bends toward praise, avoids discomfort, and fragments under pressure. Modern psychology gives this process a language. When social feedback disappears, the ego's predictive model weakens. The brain, no longer rewarded for performance, turns inward. Joe Dispenza describes this as the collapse of habitual identity. The familiar self, built on routine reactions and external validation, begins to loosen. This moment feels disorienting. Without roles to play, unresolved emotions rise. Regret, desire, fear, ambition, doubt. The mind attempts to escape back into noise, not because silence is harmful, but because truth is demanding. Heracles spoke of oikeiosis, the gradual alignment of the self with its true nature. That alignment cannot occur while identity is constantly negotiated. Solitude is the environment where the false self loses momentum and the essential self gains definition. This is not self-indulgence. It is self-examination. In stillness, patterns become visible. You notice which thoughts repeat without progress, which habits operate without intention, which emotions govern decisions quietly without consent. This awareness is not judgment, it is clarity. The Stoics did not believe the self was fixed. Chrysippus argued that character is formed through repeated ascent. What you tolerate in silence becomes what you accept in life. Solitude, then, is not escape. It is a decision point. To remain alone without distraction is to allow the mind to speak honestly. To stay present without entertainment is to hear what has been ignored. This is why solitude feels heavy. It carries the weight of responsibility. Yet within that weight lies freedom, because once the masks dissolve, choice returns. You are no longer reacting to expectation. You are no longer negotiating identity. You are standing face to face with yourself, unedited and unprotected. And from that confrontation, a quieter strength begins to form, one that does not depend on applause, one that does not collapse when unseen. What emerges next is not withdrawal, but authority, not isolation, but command, the kind that only develops when the mind learns to govern itself. How solitude builds unshakable inner command. There is a point where solitude stops being confrontation and becomes alignment. The mind no longer resists silence, it inhabits it. This is where the Stoics believe true authority is formed, not authority over others, but over oneself. Marcus Aurelius returned to solitude not to escape responsibility, but to restore order within his thoughts so his actions could remain just. Epictetus taught that no man is free who cannot govern his own impressions. Solitude is where that governance is practiced. Modern psychology echoes this truth. Emotional regulation does not emerge from constant expression, but from disciplined awareness. Daniel Goleman emphasized that self-mastery begins when attention is no longer hijacked by impulse. Stillness trains this capacity. It allows emotions to be observed without immediate reaction. It creates space between stimulus and response. Neuroscience explains the mechanism. When stimulation is reduced, neural circuits associated with focus and executive control strengthen. Neuroplasticity favors depth over novelty. The brain learns to sustain attention without reward. This is the biological foundation of discipline. Jordan Peterson frames this as voluntary confrontation with chaos. Solitude is not avoidance of difficulty. It is the deliberate exposure to it without distraction. In silence, unresolved thoughts surface, not to torment you, but to be integrated. Meaning is not discovered in constant motion, but in ordered reflection. The Stoics called this apatheia, not emotional suppression, but emotional clarity. A state where passions no longer dictate behavior and reason reclaims its place. From this clarity emerges eudaimonia, not happiness as pleasure, but flourishing through alignment with virtue. Solitude trains this alignment. It teaches the mind to remain steady without reassurance. It conditions the nervous system to tolerate stillness without panic. Over time, the weight of silence becomes familiar, then lighter, then grounding. This is why solitude produces calm strength. Decisions become less reactive, focus deepens, identity stabilizes. You no longer depend on external affirmation to feel oriented. You carry your order with you. Finally, solitude reveals its true purpose. It is not an end state, it is preparation. The Stoics did not retreat from life, they returned to it sharpened, composed, and inwardly governed. When you can be alone without discomfort, you are no longer easily disturbed. When silence no longer threatens you, noise loses its power. Solitude is not emptiness. It is where the noise ends and your truth begins. And in that truth, stillness becomes weightless.